What's up, everybody? Hutch here, and this is Module 12, Lesson 2. Your I can statement is I can find the areas of circles given the radius or the diameter using the formula for areas of a circle. So let's go ahead and explore this. This part, you can sort of ignore me, or if your brain is ready to handle it, go ahead and come along for the ride. So the first thing that I want you to see is when we take the circle and we break it into chunks and put it together like this, you can see it forms this parallelogram, okay? And the area formula, remember, area is the space inside, okay? And the area formula for a parallelogram is area equals base times height, okay? Now, the height of this parallelogram is technically the radius of our circle. So that's why instead of using height, we're using radius, okay? So area equals base times the radius. Well, the base, okay, if you look at the base or this green here, well, the green is actually half of our circumference, right? Okay, and so since our base is half of the circumference, we can replace base with 1/2 of the circumference, okay? So now we have area equals 1/2 of the circumference times r, okay? Now, we can replace the circumference with 2 pi r, okay? Because circumference is the same thing as 2 pi r, okay? And then half of 2 pi r is just 1 pi r, or pi r times r, and r times r is actually r squared. And so that's where we end up with area equals pi r squared as the formula for a circle, okay? So let's go ahead and we'll use that formula to solve some problems. So let's jump right to here, okay? Remember, I told you before, your focus is identify what you know and what you're trying to find. So find the area. We're going to use 3.14, round to the nearest hundredth, and we have the diameter, the radius over here, okay? So we know that our formula is area equals pi r squared. And remember, when we're doing area, we're always using squared because we're measuring the area in unit squares, okay? And so we have pi r squared, so we're always going to start by writing the formula. Area equals pi r squared. And then, again, all we're going to do is plug it in and chug away and get our answer. So let's go ahead and solve it. Do we know the area? No, it says find the area. So we're going to have area equals 3.14 times the radius, which is 14.2, squared, okay? Now, for this, we have to follow order of operations. And order of operations, remember with our GERMDOS, says take care of any grouping, which we don't have grouping. This is just organizational, okay? But we need to take care of any exponents, okay? And so we have to take care of this first, okay? And so let's go ahead and start solving this. So we have 14.2. And then you can either use a squared button or you can just times 14.2. Just make sure you don't do times 2. That's not what we're doing. So we have 3.14 times 201.64. Okay? Then we're going to multiply that, 3.14, and we get an area of 633, round to the nearest hundredth. Okay? And look at the units here. So we're looking at, there it is, inches. So hundredth place is 0.15 inches, and because it's area, we have to do squared. So don't forget about that, okay? All right. Excuse me. All right, let's go ahead and circle it, and there we go. All right, let's jump down here to the check. You can pause and try it on your own, or if you want to just follow along, you can. So first, highlight what you know and what you are trying to find. Find the area, and I know the radius. So let's go ahead and set it up. Area equals pi r squared, okay? And now let's go ahead and plug in information that we know. I don't know the area. I know 3.14. I know the radius is 18.75. And we're going to square that. And according to order of operations, we're going to do this first. Just don't forget that. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this. If you want to, let's take a look at Desmos calculator for this so we can actually use the squared button. So 18.75, and then we can just use the button right there, okay? And you can see it takes care of that for us. And if you want, really, what's nice about this is we could then just say times 3.14 and take care of all of it, okay? So we have an area of 1,103, rounding to the nearest hundredth, okay? So 0.91 centimeters, and its area, so it's squared, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and let me go big O version here. All right, let's check this out. Find the area given the diameter. So obviously, if we're given the diameter, but we only have a formula with radius, well, remember what radius is. It's just half of the diameter. So if we just cut the diameter in half, then we have our radius, okay? So let's go ahead and take care of this. So the city of Wellington is commissioning a statue. This circular base has a 26-foot diameter, okay? I don't want to work with the diameter, okay? So I'm going to just right away ignore that and find the radius. So 26 divided by 2 is 13. So we're going to work with 13 feet as a radius instead. So just be careful about that, okay? All right, so we have our radius here that we're going to use, okay? What is the area? Okay, so let's go ahead and solve it. We have area equals pi r squared, okay? All right, set it up and substitute. 3.14 times the radius is 13 squared. Let's go ahead and plug this in, and you can do this first and then multiply and write it out, or you can just do it all on Desmos and get an official answer, okay? So we have 13 squared and then times the 3.14, okay? All right, 530.66, rounding to the hundredth, we're double checking, and it's in feet squared, okay? All right, that's it for this one. Okay, let's go ahead and explore the check, pause and try it out, or follow along with me. Let's see, we got this much of a diameter. When I'm doing area, remember, I don't want diameter. So right away, I'm going to rewrite that. So 24.25 divided by 2, and we get a 12.125 foot, and I'm just going to write radius, okay? So I'm changing that information right away, okay? And I really recommend doing this to just, uncomplicate things. And then they want to know what's the area. So let's go ahead and set it up. Area equals pi r squared. Area equals 3.14 times the radius, which is 12.125 squared. And then let's go ahead and plug it in. Okay, so we have our 12.125, always looking to make sure that we typed it right, and then multiplied by the 3.14. Okay, and we get 461 point, check the rounding to the hundredth. It looks like 6.3 because it was 6.2 with a 9 next to it. Look at our units, it's in feet and squared because we're doing area. So always double check that, okay? All right, let's go ahead to semicircles now. Semicircle just means half a circle, okay? And so obviously you're gonna do the area equals pi r squared, but you're just then cutting it in half because it's half of the space. Okay, so nothing too complicated here. So they make these cool wireless fence transmitters. I don't know if any of you have these, but it's sort of a newer thing where you put your collar on your dog, you put this base station, and it creates this radius of where your dog can be. And if they go out of it, then zap, zap, zappity, zap, and bark, bark, and sadness. So anyway, wireless fence transmitter at the back door of the house allows the dog to roam freely. It has a radius of 30 feet. So that's good. At least they're giving us the radius, okay? And we're asking what is the area. So we're going to use the area formula, pi r squared, but remember, since it's a semicircle, we want to take that and we want to cut it in half. So you could either write it first and say, well, 1/2 pi r squared, okay? Or you could write pi r squared and then divide it by 2. However you want to write it, doesn't really matter. It's all the same thing, okay? So let's go ahead and work this out. We have our area equals 1/2 times 3.14, and then we have our radius of 30 squared. Okay, so let's follow our order of operations though. Okay, so first, according to GermDOS, is our exponents. So we're going to take care of this first. Okay, and so we have our 30 squared is 900. Okay, and then we have 1/2 times 3.14. So technically we would do the 1/2 times 3.14 according to order of operations. But we know if we're multiplying and we have all multiplication, it doesn't matter the order in which you multiply everything. And so with our 900, I can automatically just multiply by 3.14 and then divide that. I better hit answer and divide by 2 at the end. Okay, so just be careful with your Desmos and make sure you're typing everything in accurately. And then I do want to show you how we can still type it in the other way and get the right answer as well. So 1413, let's look at our units. Okay, feet, and it's squared. Okay, so let's sort of just explore the other methods here. So if we did 0.5 times 3.14 times 900, you can see we get the same thing, the 1413. Okay, if you are going to type it with the exponent, it would look like this: the 0.5 times the 3.14 times 30 squared, and it's still going to get the same thing, and that's only because this calculator is going to follow order of operations. So I just want you to make sure you type things in accurately. You can mess it up with hitting the division button in the wrong places, so just be careful, okay? All right, so there we go with our answer there. All right, go ahead and try this out. You can pause or follow along. Okay, let's gather our information. What is the area? That's the thing I want to try to find. And then we have this number. And we have to ask ourselves, is this the diameter or is this the radius? And so what I would tell you is, if it's written in the center like this, then it's probably the diameter, okay? If it is written on the side over here, then it's probably the radius, and it should have a really like distinct line like this. So please don't get confused wondering what it is, okay? Use some of that common sense to decide. So remember, my first tip to you is don't use the diameter, like instantly just change it. So 7.5 divided by 2 is 3.75. So right away, I'm gonna record my radius, okay, so that I don't even pay attention to 7.5 yards, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and set it up. So we have area equals pi r squared, and we know that we could just take that whole thing and divide it by 2, okay? So another way you could write it, okay? Let's plug things in. 3.14, I keep doing that. 3.14 times the radius of 3.75. We need to square that, and then the whole thing gets divided by 2, okay? Because it's half of a circle. All right, so let's go ahead and get this all typed in. Area equals, so we can go ahead and do our 3.75 squared, multiply by the 3.14, hit enter, and then take our answer divided by 2, and we have our final work is 22 point, let's look at what we're rounding to, hundredths. So 0.8, because we're going to cut it at the hundredths, and there's an 8 after the 7. Okay, now we look for the units, which is yards, and we make sure we write squared for area. Area is measured in squares. Okay, so there we go. All right, let's check out this one. So we're using the circumference. So this is like what we did yesterday, where all of a sudden you know the circumference and you have to work backwards, okay, to find the area. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore this a little bit. Okay, so if I know the circumference, okay, and I want to try to find the area, think about the one thing that I need to know in order to find the area. Well, to find area, what variable do I need? I need to find the radius, okay? So if I know the circumference, which one of these am I going to use, okay, to find the radius? Okay, well, option number 2, right, the 2 pi r. Okay, so this is where we have to sort of put our work together to get what we need. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore this. When we know the circumference of a circle, you can work backwards to find the area of a circle. So here's the circumference is 18.84. So let's use option 2, because that's how I'll find the radius so I can solve the area. So if I do circumference equals 2 pi r, and substitute things in, okay, circumference is 18.84. Double pi we know is 6 point, because remember 3.14, double is 6.28. And then I don't know the radius, but that's what my hope is to find. Because once I have radius, then I can find the area. Okay, let's go ahead and separate our workspace like we always do. Get r by itself. And now we found the radius. So we finally got to that place, just like they'd say, hey, here's the radius, what's the area? So 18.84 divided by 6.28 divided by 6.28, and we have a radius of 3. So now that we know that, we can use our area formula, right? So let's go ahead and set it up. Area equals pi r squared. And now we know what that is, so 3.14 times 3 squared. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. So we know 3 times 3 is 9. So all we're doing is 9 times 3.14. And we get an area of 28.26. And it is in meters squared. Okay, and there we go. So 2-step problem to get there. Okay. All right, here's example 4. Use circumference to find area. Okay. Now they're giving us something different. Okay. So they're saying that the exact circumference of a circle is 32 pi inches. Okay. So let's go ahead and figure out what to do for this. Okay, they're telling us asking us what is the approximate area of the circle, and they want us to use 3.14 for pi. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. They're giving us their circumference, and what do we want to find? Well, we want to find, okay, the radius, right? Because the radius is the one that allows us to plug in here. Okay, so we have to use not option 1, but we need to use option 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. So we have C equals 2 pi r. Okay, all right, now they're saying the circumference of the circle is 32 pi inches. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug in the information that we know. So the circumference is 32 pi, okay, and then we set it equal to, okay, and we have to solve for r, okay, so right here we have 32 pi inches, and we have 2 pi r, okay. So let's go ahead and solve things out because we don't know what anything else is, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and here we go, okay. Let's move things around a little bit, okay. So if I have 2 pi r here, Okay, we can go ahead and start typing in some things we know because they're telling us to use 3.14. So I have 32 times 3.14 equals 2 times 3.14, and I don't know what r is, okay? Now, we're not really combining like terms, but you can solve some of these first. So let's go ahead and solve the things we can. Okay, so we have 32 times 3.14, okay? And so this side right now is 100.48, and this side is 2 times 3.14, and we know that is 6.28 times r. Okay, let's go ahead and solve for r. Divide by 6.28, cross that out, and we have 100.48 divided by 6.28, and there we go. We have 16 equals r. Okay, now that we have r, we can go ahead and plug in for the area formula. Okay, so let's go to step 2. Area equals pi r squared, and let's plug in what we know. 3.14 times the radius, which we just figured out is 16, and squared. So let's get our official answer. What is the area of this circle? So we have 16 squared times 3.14. And we have an area of 803.84. Okay, now let's look round to the hundredth. That's accurate. And what's the units? The units is inches. So we have inches squared. And there you go. Okay, so that one's a little bit different. Don't get confused by that whole 32 pi inches. This is just what the number is. And if you want right away, you could just do 32 times 3.14 and write that new number down, if that makes it easier for you. Okay, so let's try it here. They're telling you the exact circumference of the circle is 13 pi. So again, let's try it this other way. Instead of doing 13 pi, let's just go ahead and do 13 times 3.14. And so really, this is saying, hey, the exact circumference is 40.82 feet. Okay, and so we could rewrite it and completely ignore that type of writing. Okay, what's the approximate area of the circle? So let's go ahead and find the area. Now you have to remember, we only know the circumference, so we have to use the circumference first to find the radius. So circumference equals, okay, and we're going to think back up, okay, 2 pi r, and then go ahead and substitute. So the circumference is 40.82, okay, equals 2 times 3.14, or we know we could just do 6.28 r. Okay, and you can see, so that speeds up the process just a little bit. Divide by 6.28, divide by 6.28, cross that out, and let's get our radius. So our radius equals 40.82 divided by 6.28, and we have a radius of 6.5, and technically it's feet, right? All right, so now that we have the radius, let's go ahead and use the formula, and it's okay for you to go back up to the formula. Like I said, you don't have to remember them all. You just need to be able to access and use the formula sheet. So we're doing area equals pi r squared. So we have area equals pi r squared, always writing the formula first. 3.14. Now we know the radius is 6.5 and squared. So let's go ahead and use our Desmos calculator and solve it out. So order of operations says do the exponents first, then multiply by 3.14, and we get 132. Check for the rounding. We're going to the hundredths. Point, now we got to look carefully, 6.6 or 6.7? We're doing 6.7. And this is feet squared because it's area, okay? And there's our official answer, okay? All right, let's head down here. Here's your replies, and then you can get to your homework. A square scrapbook page has an area. So again, just like you, I'm exploring what do I know? So I already know the whole area, which is interesting, okay? She wants to cut the largest circle possible from the page to create a layered background for a new page. Okay, what's the approximate area of the paper circle? Use 3.14 for pi. Okay, all right, so the other twist of this is the square scrapbook is 144 square inches. So we're talking about this right here. And I'm guessing we're going to, because I know it has to go up against the circle for us to get the radius or diameter, we can easily assume it's this square right here that I'm outlining. So this is just part of the problem-solving process, is thinking through these details. So square is 144 square inches. Well, how do you find area of a square? Well, area of a square, we know, is area equals the length times the width, okay? And in this case, for a square, it's actually just the side times the side, or area equals side squared. So if I look at, I'm actually going to grab the formula sheet here, if it'll allow me to grab it. So if you look at area of a square, you can see they're using area equals S2, or side times side, really. Okay, so we can just go ahead and figure this out. So if we have an area of 144, okay, and we have S squared, one of the things that we didn't really talk about yet is this idea of how to get rid of a squared. And so the opposite of a squared is actually a square root. So you can take the square root of both of those. It'll cancel out the squared, and it will leave you with S equals. But you just sort of know what times what would equal 144. Well, 12 times 12 is 144. But let's go ahead and look at how to type that into the calculator. So you can just do, I think, yep, square root button first, and then 144, and you can see it equals 12, okay? And so we know each side length is 12, okay? And so I want you to think about that. If this whole side length is 12 from here to here, and you shifted this up, okay, look, what is that really? Oh, it's actually the diameter, right? So we just figured out the diameter of our circle. If we want to find the area of the circle, we need to find the radius, right? So we don't really want to use 12, okay? So let's go ahead and move that 12 back down. What do we want to use? Well, we want to go from the middle to the outside, and we know that's 6, okay? And I'm going to put inches here so we don't lose track of our units. All right, so now we can go ahead and do our area formula for the circle, okay? So this is area for a square, okay? Let's now do area formula for a circle, which we know is pi r squared, okay? So let's plug in what we know. We know 3.14. We know the radius is now 6 n squared. So 6 times 6 is 36. That's our 6 squared. So we can just do our 36 times 3.14, and it gets us 113.04. What's the units? We're already at hundredths, so we don't have to worry about that. Inches squared, because it's area, okay? All right, so there we go. Okay, so a little bit something new and interesting with that. All right, try out the check here. Let's see what's going on. The Blackwells have a circular pool, and it has a radius of 10 feet. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, we can see that radius right here. They want to install a 3-foot wide sidewalk around the pool. What will be the area of the sidewalk? Okay, so think about what's going on here. We want to know the area of only the sidewalk. So how would you do that? Well, if you find the area of the whole circle and then remove this one, you'll have the leftover. So that's what you need to sort of think through, is how do I find the area of the entire circle and then subtract the inside circle? Well, you're going to need to find the area of both, right? So take a moment, you can pause and explore that or follow along, okay? So let's go ahead and start taking care of first the area of the pool, okay? So I can just take care of this. Let's go ahead and label things when we're doing two things. So we have area of the pool is area equals pi r squared. If we're going to substitute, 3.14. The radius is 10, n squared. Let's go ahead and solve that now. So 10 times 10 is 100, and then 100 times 3.14 is just going to move the decimal to 314, but here we go. 100 times 3.14, you see 314. Okay, and this is feet squared. Okay, all right, so we know the area of the pool itself. We need to find the area of the entire big circle. Okay, and one of the things we know is this little distance here is 3 feet. Okay, so my question to you is, what is this distance? Okay, well, that distance is obviously 13 feet, and it is the center of this entire circle. So really, we just found the radius of the big circle. Okay, so we could say large, we could say big, whatever you want to say. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and solve this out. So area equals pi r squared. Substitute 3.14. The radius is 13 squared. Okay, I don't know what 13 times 13 is, so we're going to need to do that on the calculator. So we have 13 squared, then times 3.14. So we get 523.9. And that's feet squared. So we have the area of the large and the area of the pool. And what did we want to do? We wanted to remove the pool from the large circle. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and subtract 314 feet from there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and use my answer button and subtract 314. And that gets us, let's see, what will the area be? I can say the sidewalk will be 209.9. We're rounding to the 100th if necessary. And this is feet squared. Okay. And so there we go. Okay. So lots of problem solving for those, but stuff you can definitely take care of. All right. Number 9 is your apply for your homework. There's a square piece of yellow felt, so be aware of the shape that has an area of 81 square inches. She wants to cut the largest circle possible. This sounds a lot like which one? Yep, the first apply, not the check. Okay, so you can imitate off of that for number 9. All right, and then the rest of these are just going to give you practice with what we just did. Okay, and I don't really want to do any more examples with you because I want you to get that independent practice. But please let me know if you need any help, and we can talk about how to solve the rest of them. All right, good luck.